Bastards, directed by Claire Denis, which was released back in 2013, also known in French called Les Salauds, is her 11th feature, and it stars Vincent Lindon and Chiara Mastroianni. Vincent Lindon, in my perspective, is literally the pitch perfect protagonist as an anti-hero in a noir. He kind of has the same vibe as Robert Mitchum from the 40s, and that is a rare breed. He's one of those guys that he doesn't necessarily look, he's not basically physically pretty in that retrospect, but he vibes with extreme masculinity and attractiveness. And so he's perfect because this is a noir directed by a huge art house individual. Sometimes they go, her movies go too far with the art house genre. And it also stars the daughter of Catherine Deneuve and famous Italian icon Marcello Mastroianni, Chiara Mastroianni, who looked a lot like her dad, by the way. Bastards basically tells the tale about a man a seaman, who basically comes back into Paris to take revenge on his niece, rape, torture, and attempted suicide. He goes into an apartment where his neighbour is played by Chiara Mastroianni, who is pretty much the femme fatale of the film, and her husband is obviously one of the it's not a spoiler, it is basically the culprit who performed the action, a rich businessman, Jeffrey Epstein like despicable pedophile. And it is a bleak, morbid, nightmarish movie, but Claire Denis' art house visual style also somehow hypnotizes, but also is equally frustrating in equal measure. The trouble, as it always is with a Claire Denis film, is that when she does get art house, the problem is that there is conventional films, right, that sometimes are a tad too conventional for their own good, and then there is art house, which is great, that have the right balance between conventional and art house blending together, that works sometimes really, really, really well, such as, say, Tarkovsky, Refn, and maybe even Paul Thomas Anderson, for that matter. I can't really think of it, possibly even the Safdie brothers as our most recent example. But then there is also art house films that go too far. And an example of this would be, in my perspective, sometimes it would be in the cinema of Lynn Ramsey and Terrence Malick, Abbas Kiarostami, who passed away a couple of years ago, and Claire Denis. And what I mean by this is that basically it's like trying to tell a sort of a narrative, but purposely doing it in the most unconventional sense as possible. Ergo, all action is pretty much removed, and it basically leaves to the audience expectations. Sometimes there is nothing wrong with that, but like, for example, Lynn Ramsey's latest film is a good comparison, because her film You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix, is very similar to this film that I've just seen, Bastards, as it's called. The anti-conventional narrative, because in a way there is action within the hitman storyline of You Were Never Really Here, and this sort of noir mystery thriller of this movie. When certain actions occur, the director purposely removes the camera and starts taking shots of trees or nature or something else, or something really, visually, strong or something. But it sometimes just frustrates. And a great example in this film is, at one point, this is typical of a lot of auteur art house filmmakers, and one that is reminiscent is Peter Greenaway with The Cook, the Thief, His Wife and Her Lover, is that in one scene in this movie, Vincent Landon's character, there is a sex scene, right? And there is no actual realistic dialogue that has led up to the sex scene. So basically it's all like looks and vibes, and basically, sexual tension is built from that. And I just simply say, fuck right off. I do not buy it. And the reason being is because in real life, as the visual look of the film is trying to be like this sort of gritty, nitty, realistic drama thriller, you're going to tell me that a seaman who is out on a quest for revenge, right, who hasn't basically seen who's going on the middle of a divorce, is super confident in order to pick up his really attractive neighbour next door, and picking her up in the sense of not saying pretty much any words to her except for, hi, my shirt is dirty. I'm sorry, I just do not buy it. And the fact that she basically sort of like, he opens the door and he's like, oh yeah, my shirt is dirty. And she basically just starts kissing him and they make love. Now, I'm sorry, I just do not buy that. And you're telling me that actually happens in real life? No, it doesn't. It simply doesn't happen that way. But Claire Denis and all the other auteur filmmakers will probably think otherwise. And they might have their arguments, but I just did not buy it, especially for its artistic technique of what it was trying to pull off. Apart from that, the film is actually quite hypnotising. Like a lot of Claire Denis movies, they're also as frustrating as they don't deliver answers, but sometimes they just don't deliver enough answers in order for us to basically put the dots together. Because let's say with a David Lynch movie, they might be abstract, but on the other hand, you've sort of got a clear idea what is going on, despite the fact that you are left in absolute bubbles of what is of the plot itself, you see, such as Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive. You've got a clear introduction of its characters, and you are hypnotised with where the story is going. Claire Denis, on the other hand, edits a lot of things out and basically does shots of absolute nothing. A similar comparison, if I want to make an American comparison, would be Terrence Malick, in the sense that he would shoot lots of shots of trees, grass, and this, and country landscapes, and it always beautiful, but it doesn't. But it loses its narrative focus, and that is the problem that I have a lot of the time with Claire Denis movies. But the good news is that this time round, it is a tad more convenient in order for me to watch. And I am not going to lie, I do find Claire Denis movies somewhat intriguing to watch, but I do leave the film as frustrated as I am intrigued by it in the first place. Now, I guess that is a good sign, but I can't give it a strong recommendation because it will basically bore, frustrate, and annoy many viewers. But if you are an art house person, if you really like that sort of stuff, by all means go right ahead and see this movie. You'll be leaving quite downtrodden, a little bit like in the same vein of A Requiem for a Dream, because the final frames are deeply dark and disturbing in that regard, and it just reminds us that the really rich kings out there are not presidents or royal families. There are, in fact, the business pedophiles or who are dominating the world, just like the Jeffrey Epstein style or the Harvey Weinsteins of modern day society. And it's that kind of message that is trying to achieve, and it does so quite well. So therefore, I give the film a 3.5 out of 5. I do think there are some really strong hypnotic aspects. It is a very hypnotising film, without a doubt, but it also frustrates in equal measure. So, if you like my review, please subscribe, put a like, and voila, au revoir, arrivederci, ciao.